Shortbox Nation. Without further ado, let's catch up with some comic news and talk about what's been going on in the world of comics. Chris, you being the resident football correspondent and currently smartest guy in the room, how about you go ahead and kick us off, man? What topic you got for us today?
Okay, so up first here, I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on Marvel denying using any AI in the new Fantastic Four First Steps poster. They put out 4 posters, one of which, well, first I should say all 4 look very AI. I think my media literacy alert went off in my head, was like, oh, this doesn't look real at all. This resembles zero reality. But there's one in particular where it's a crowd of people and they're all holding up Fantastic Four flags and signs and such. And one gentleman in the front only has 3 fingers, which, there are people in the world that only have 3 fingers, i.e. Ben Grimm being one of them. But, or no, is it 4? He has 3 on top, 4 fingers.
Anyway. It could be Yakuza,
Wow.
Yeah.
A very diverse poster like that.
He shamed his family. He shamed his clan.
Yeah.
He's still out there representing for the Fantastic Four.
But he's still in the crowd. He's still out there supporting the FF. So, but also there's a woman in the background. She shows up 3 times in this poster.
Oh, I didn't actually notice that.
Yeah.
I noticed that it's got like that classic like sheen and shine that a lot of AI art has. That was like kind of the indicator, and I think there's like some instances of like some random splotches that don't really make sense on top of a lot of missing fingers.
Yeah, a lot of AI art has like almost a white hue behind its figures to sort of I don't know where that comes from. I'm not as knowledgeable about the sort of the process of AI generated images specifically. Before I go any further, Ed, I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on this firstly, because
as our resident artist here,
that's what I'm saying. You created the cover art for the short box. When you see something
integral
like
foundational person right here, right?
I'm telling you, member. We talked about
this. Used AI. Nothing.
Damn, Ed was so ahead of the game. He was using AI and 20.
I got early access.
When you made the short box logo, it's been some years now, right?
It's been a while. If
you're watching the video version, it's over my left shoulder. That's the original. That's the OG art right there.
That's the Mid-Journey scan that Ed
I get it really quick. I get asked a lot. I think this is one of my go-to questions. Hey, your house is on fire. What are 5 comic things you'd grab? And Ed, I'm proud to say that is high on the list right there, brother.
I appreciate that.
But now that I learned that I use AI on, I don't know. Might let that shit burn. It's burning hell.
Use my own hand like a sucker.
Now we've sort of seen the slow and painful destruction of the movie poster. I think in terms of if you go back to the 70s and obviously before that, but I think the golden age of movie posters was the 70s, 80s, 90s, and I think around the 2000s where it slowly started to become giant heads and CGI. Ed, thoughts really quickly on sort of this whole process, where we're headed for movie posters and all those things.
I think I agree with you. It is a lost art because I do love those. Is it Drew Struzan who did like a lot of those hand illustrated, like Temple of Doom,
Big
Star Trouble in Little China, Star Wars, all these beautifully crafted poster. And I think it is a lost art. Unfortunately, I think like we even discussed last year, it's just inevitability, because one of the big things is when you deny you're using AI. I didn't see any. I've seen all the articles, and it could all be probably cut and paste, but out of all the articles I did look, they did not say who did it.
Correct.
There was no artist listed. So that's kind of a big key. If you're going to say, hey, this is an AI, Potter did these shitty looking poster. I'm just using you as an example. So it's
right. That's actually,
it could be,
those are the adjectives they would use if I did that poster.
And it could be AI. And just from looking at like, especially those repeated faces, there is, in Photoshop, there is the clone and stamping tools. It could be a poorly used of that just to, fill up the space. But out of how many years have these guys been making comic book movies? Of course it's going to be nitpicked. This isn't your first comic book fucking movie. Come on, man. It's pretty, because like looking at it on my phone for like half a second, it's like, oh cool, Alex Ross did some posters.
Yeah.
And then I looked at it, it's like, oh Jesus Christ, look at the face on this, like giant face on this. It's like and like I said, I'm not about comic art having to be realistic and Alex Ross all the time. I do like the crazier looking art, but this is not it has to be has to have in some direction. There has to be a direction to it, and this does not fit what promotional material for this movie. You know what I'm saying? So it is very bizarre, and I don't know why they don't just admit it, or at least they're a big company. They've thrown people under the bus before. I don't know why they're not doing it now.
And I mean, Ed,
yeah.
And Ed, to your point, this is not even like the first instance of them, not using AI, but actually, no, this is the first instance of them using AI. I don't know if they've denied, obviously, that they didn't use AI for this poster, but they have a track record of using like AI. And some of the instances I got is the miniseries Secret Wars, right? Like that whole opening credit scene. I don't know if Secret Wars. Oh, well, then the article got it wrong. Sorry, Secret Invasion. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But that opening credit scene, was plagued with AI generated stuff. I mean, I think we all complained about how bad it looked, how shoddy it just looked. It was just wonky. And then a second instance I was able to find is now, granted, this is a little different, but James Earl Jones had approved, Disney to clone his voice for future Star Wars using AI. So it's not like Marvel or Disney aren't, haven't used AI or have a tracker. Exactly. But in this particular case, it is interesting that I don't know, like this is supposed to be their, the Fantastic Four, the big return to like form, like, we're finally introducing the Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family. I mean, the posters, it's a ticker tape parade, it's a celebration, and it is like just a weird call to just use AI for it.
It's looked like the AI looked at some of the old Alex Ross Marvels.
Yeah, okay, and that's a good point, because considering that there's an Easter egg right there, front and center on this poster. Philip Sheldon, who is a character in the Marvel universe. He's a photographer and journalist, created by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross, 1993. Right, part of the central character in their iconic Marvel series. It's like, why not just have Alex Ross do the poster, considering that, one, he loves the Fantastic Four, two, you're kind of already doing his art style already. Ed, I'm on the same boat as you. Like, at a quick glance at this poster, it is like, that's a cool Alex Ross piece. And so like you really start studying it, and you're like, never mind, that is fake Ross right there.
Isn't that AI today, though, in 2025? It is, on the surface, people who have little to no media literacy look at it, or taste, let's be honest. They look at AI art and they go, oh, that's interesting. A owl holding a cup of coffee saying good morning on Facebook. Wow, that's really funny. Let me send it to my grandma. But people like us here, people listening to the show, they go, we've got freaking Mark Brooks and Michael Cho and Alex Ross and all these people, who Phil Noto, like all these artists out here who would do this for nothing in Disney money, right? Like they would pay them a couple grand maybe, and then they all of a sudden out of nowhere accidentally have an iconic poster in a landscape of terrible movie posters.
And Chris, good point on the cost too. It's like, let's just take a ballpark figure. What do you think? And Chris, you might actually have more information on this. What do you think an Alex Ross commission it goes for? Probably like what, 10 grand, like in that range, maybe.
Probably at least.
He's listed a couple pieces on his website before. Granted, they were from Secret Wars, and this was a couple years ago. These are giant pieces. If you've ever seen Alex Ross's work in person,
they're
huge. They're like the size of a wall most of the time. And I think at that time he had the double page spread of Secret Wars #1 up for sale, and it was $28,000.
Wow. Okay.
That's double page, of course. That's Secret Wars. It's a big book. I think if you were to like buy, let's say, he's doing the Ryan North Fantastic Four covers right now. I bet you could probably get a cover of his for 15 grand. You know, somewhere in that ballpark.
Well, it just makes me think, and I feel like I already know the answer here, but it would have been well worth whether, and obviously Alex Ross would probably upcharge for a company, doing, at this level, the awareness and things like that. I think he probably would have charged them a lot more because it's just smart business. But it would have gone a long way. Like their dollars investing in Alex Ross would have went a long way with the fans. And I'm also curious, like, were they really saving money, using AI for a movie poster, considering that they probably used a promotional company or hired some sort of company to produce it? And they're taxing Disney as well. It's like, well, look, if you're going to get taxed, you might as well go with like a living legend,
They basically
a legit
said, hey,
artist.
could you AI make this kind of look like an Alex Ross Marvels deal?
Yeah.
And the thing too is like, it's especially when you're making, movies that are based on comic books, a print medium, and you're going to cheap out on the posters that can be used for, hey, a comic that can be published later. You can use these imagery. You can use this imagery. You can sell the posters. Who's not going to buy an Alex Ross? Imagine like a set of those as an Alex Ross set.
Yeah,
dude, you're just. I don't get what the point is of like saving whatever money you think you're saving or effort at this point, especially when they're on the bounce back from having a whole phase of subpar mid-level movies.
I think it's important to consider where we're at in the MCU's history currently too. Before I go on to that really quickly, we're also talking about Alex Ross here. If we were to get Phil Noto, who is incredible himself, Mark Brooks, like I said, Michael Cho, these guys are not Alex Ross. No offense. I mean that respectfully. Alex Ross is Alex Ross. If you were to ask Phil Noto to do something like this, I bet you could probably get him to do all 4 single characters in a group shot together. You could get all that for $5,000 from Phil Noto. I'm just
Dude, you can get like, just to kind of go even like a little more old school guy, like a Steve Rude or somebody who does painted stuff that's similar to Alex Ross. He's not, I don't think he's on that level, but he's up there. That guy's up there. There's so many people that would have done this.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Well, I would say just to speak on the sort of where we're at in the MCU, there were years where they were hitting heaters after heaters, and we were just eating whatever they were selling. This is a time now where, of course, we've got Deadpool and Wolverine. That was a hit, but that could have been a flash in the pan. That character and Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, all of that worked, but that would have been really hard to miss on. I think we can all agree that movie, had it not worked, we would have been flabbergasted. If you go back on the track record of the MCU of the last couple of years, not to be a super pessimist or anything, but we've hit peaks and valleys. There have been good entries. I'm thinking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Loki Season 2, and there have been some misses, Secret Invasion being one of them, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, so on. So, this would be a good get back on board type of move. And Badr, you and I, we work in marketing. We know that the purpose of these promotional material is to get people interested. And what this does to me is it tells me that they are taking shortcuts in places that they shouldn't. And that worries me.
Yeah. Yeah, it is worrisome when you consider a colossal company like Disney, who is, let's be real, has built the company and the stature of where they're at on the backs of artists. It's like, why not engage an actual artist here? And I guess I'll save, I did have a follow-up question here, but I kind of feel like we all know the answer here. I was going to pose, is there any instance where the use of AI is acceptable in, I guess, keeping it relevant to this topic, like to any part of film, like promotional material? Because I guess, to play devil's advocate, I guess I could see a point where it's like, well, maybe we can use a little bit of AI in promotional, as long as, we don't use it in the actual movie where it's a little maybe more distracting. But I guess the more I think, to Chris, to your point of this being a promotional item, something that's, supposed to be forward facing, and, we're probably going to see these posters more than, for a longer time than, say, like another trailer or things like that. It does feel like we're being shortchanged with something so forward facing. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I will say that, like, again, being in the podcasting world, I think we can all say that AI is an interesting tool when you're using it to create content of stuff that you've already created legitimately. So, for instance, in these scenarios, if you want to use AI to create shorts on social media, or you want to use AI to create a press release for new marketing material that you've created authentically, right? And I think it's naive to think that AI is not going to be in film and television in the next 5 years. Like, we're already seeing it with the Brutalists and sort of the controversy there, where the Hungarian language was sort of messed with AI with Adrian Brody's dialect, like, to make it seem more authentic. And like, that movie is a tome of cinema. Like, if you ask people, this 3.5-hour movie is considered to be cinema gold, but it's getting a lot of controversy and could potentially lose out on some awards come Oscar season because of a small use of AI. But again, it's like sports betting in a way. This is a weird analogy, but go back to like 10 years ago with sports betting, and how this was this industry where you were considered a degenerate, and you would go across state lines to do it, and you'd have a bookie. And now the NFL is the official sponsor of DraftKings.
Yeah, it's wild.
7 years from now, we're going to be looking at AI completely different in art. which is both scary and interesting. It's like fascinating, and I am like seeing to make a sort of a reference here, I'm seeing Doom's hand slowly coming over the earth in a way that's like there's clarity in it in a way. It's like I'm dying, but now I know at least killing me. Like I get it. You know?
All right. Well, Chris, good first opening topic here. I'll look to the listeners to chime in. One, do you think that there is use of AI in the poster? Like, I think hopefully we mentioned this, but the official response from Marvel and Disney is that there is no use of AI in this, despite some of the kind of clear telltale signs.
But we have
we've
eyeballs.
You can't pull a fast one on us.
Right.
So I guess let us know what you think. Did they use AI in the art? And then where do you draw the line in terms of the use of AI in things like film and movies? Do you let something like a promo poster slide, or are you against it? Let us know. All right, theshortboxjacks@gmail.com, or send us some fan mail. I got the voicemail option in the show notes. All right, Ed, let's pass the baton to you, man. What topic you got for us today?
Oh, yeah. So we were talking a little bit before recording, but with the whole Diamond debacle, Massive Publishing, which is part of the Whatnot Publishing umbrella, they announced that they have added Lunar Distribution and launched a new sub-distribution initiative called Massive Indies for independent publishers and self-published studios. Like I said, this news basically because Massive Publishing was, at the time, since like all these publishers were leaving Diamond over the last few years, Massive Publishing, Whatnot Publishing were Diamond exclusives. But now that Diamond owes them a lot of money, it's time to move the hell on.
Can I say I respect the hell out of Massive for putting Diamond on blast, because they shared a pretty lengthy Instagram post. It's like 4 pages of just text, but they call out Diamond like they owe us quite a bit of money at this point. So props to Massive for pivoting and changing direction when they ain't getting paid.
And this is oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna, I mean, just leave it up to Diamond. For anybody who's sort of in the know about Diamond, just constantly doing the worst. They're literally just forever since the moment they were created, just at the same time providing comics, but also like just again speaking on like cutting corners and all these things. If you've ever worked in a comic shop, you know that very rarely do you receive an order of comics on Tuesday morning and something not either being wrong, missing, or damaged. So anyway, sorry, not to cut you off there, but it's just I mean, it makes sense that Massive is like they should call them out. This is good.
Yeah,
I like this.
I mean, it's as someone who's worked behind the counter at the store, I can tell you anybody can share those Diamond woes, especially and when you are at the time in Monopoly, they just shrug their shoulders. Hey, you just threw a bunch of stuff in a box.
Show me on the doll where Diamond hurt you.
yeah. And it's like, you think they would know how to package comics by now, but and like I said, to be fair, we did have reps and things were taken care of eventually, but it should never have gotten to that point to begin with. But as long as also when they're doing this, they've also signed an exclusive book market distribution agreement with Simon & Schuster. So they are all out of the Diamond business. But as far as the small publishers go, from what I'm reading, it's kind of, you have to submit, I don't know if it's a juried thing or how many spots are available, because they can't take everybody, so you basically kind of have to submit like your pitch or your product, and they have like the form set up already for you to, basically get yay or nay. But the good news is, as far as Massive, it's pretty much from what they're saying, they have no editorial control, and it's you basically have all your, they're not taking any of your rights or anything, and they're not going to do any, they're not going to edit what your story is. They either say yay or nay, whatever that process is like, we'll see. But like I said, it's pretty much, that's kind of the last picking the bones of what's left of Diamond at this point, because I don't think they'll exist after, I think April is, they have like 30, I know they have there's like an NDA of 30 different people looking to purchase them, but that's not specifically for comics. It could be something else, because we don't care about the comics, but we do like this factory, we do like their trucks, we do like this infrastructure, but we don't give a shit about comics, so I don't know what's left for Diamond after this. If this works, if this is successful, and if they're able to help a lot of these small publishers, and I'm sure they're not the only ones that are going to try to do that. There are probably some other distributors that'll try to help out where they can or try to set up some kind of program. But yeah, it's a crazy time right now.
Yeah, I gotta give props to Massive for for identifying a gap and an opportunity. I think when the announcement that Diamond had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, that some of the discourse was like, obviously like, well, what does this mean in terms of like, monthly periodical comics? And I think the answer to that was, well, a lot of, Marvel and DC have already shifted to, Lunar or Penguin Random House and these other distributors. But I think Diamond was still like the primary distributor for a lot of indie creators. I'm thinking like Eli Schwab with Cosmic Lion Productions, like he was distributing his books. It was like a big deal when he got that deal with Diamond to distribute the Cosmic Lion books. Well, now, this kind of leaves him and other indie publishers and indie creators kind of like, well, what is, it's just, how am I going to get my books out there? Diamond at least was like somewhat cost efficient. So I know that was kind of a big question for a lot of folks, is like, well, what does this mean for, your Marvels, your DCs, your Image are going to be fine. They can find other distributors or figure something out. But what does this mean for, the mom and pops, the indie creators? So to hear that like Massive was aware of that and is like stepping in to give them an outlet, I think is like really impressive. It says a lot about their business practices, but also like their emphasis on empowering like indie creators and, kind of bringing them on board in this like new pivot of theirs.
Yeah, and from what I'm reading is like Diamond owes a lot of people money, and as part of this,
I had no idea that they could just put your business on blast when you file.
Hey,
I guess that's part of the deal, right?
It's out in the public now. So
it almost sounds like I just kind of maybe, hopefully I'm not putting any words in anyone's mouth, but it almost even seems like it was a surprise to Massive to find out how much Diamond was holding out on them. Like, I guess the situation is that
I'm sure they knew.
Is that they were? It's like a consignment thing. Well, I wonder if like the total real value, maybe was a wake up call. I'm sure they were like, "Hey, Diamond still owes us some money for that last shipment."
Did you see that check?
But I think I wonder what it was like seeing not only their line item but other line items and having that sense of like, oh, we weren't the only ones waiting on a check from Diamond,
because they're an independent publisher as well. You can they're bigger than most, but if they owe them money, imagine like someone who has 2 titles, that couple grand or whatever, that's a life and death for some small publishers.
Yeah. So I guess in the end, what this means, I guess, going forward is, so Massive is going to be distributing their monthly titles with Lunar. They're not exclusive to Diamond. It sounds like they're still going to distribute some of their monthly books through Diamond, but none of their like trades will go through Diamond. I guess like they're trying to, pardon me. I think they're trying to completely cut ties from Diamond until they can figure, the back payment and things like that. Chris, you got anything to chime in?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Well, firstly, I just love the idea of Massive pulling, Wesley Snipes out of where he's at and just going up to Diamond's headquarters and going, I need my money on time or else we're going to put you out there. All right. Just so you know.
On this Blade outfit.
Yeah, exactly.
On Front Street.
But, something that really put this whole situation into perspective was legend in the comic world, Michael Avon Oeming, co-creator of Powers, and has done a lot of great stuff just throughout his career, but mostly with Brian Michael Bendis. He had a TikTok. Folks out there, for all the teeny boppers that have a TikTok account, go check that out. If you're not following him already, please do. But he talked about how the comics world is just we all know this, it's a world of margin. It is as most comics right now, the moment we're talking about them, are the most popular that they've ever been, but they are also the closest that they've ever been to their demise in the history of the medium. Just always
it's that sweet ecstasy we're always chasing as comic collectors.
We're just towing that line, sitting on that fence. And he talked about like the black and white era of the early 80s, the TMNTs, the Serbius era, where it almost destroyed color comics for a while because they're cheaper to make. They were small publishers. People wanted that at that time. You had the speculation boom of the 90s, of course. And now we're in the Diamond destruction, the DD, the D squared era of comics.
We can do AD after Diamond.
Yeah,
change
AD,
it.
Yeah, BD and AD. After, it's interesting. I sort of spoke on sort of my disdain of Diamond, but they are integral to our medium and the industry as a whole, and things are going to get shaken up. Like, this is going to be huge in one way or another, and some folks are going to be on the outside looking in, unfortunately, and that's a bummer. But I hope like it often is, because comics are like cockroaches. They will survive in
Sure.
some form.
That's the
And
truth.
Ed, you were kind of speaking on this too. Like, they have the infrastructure. Someone, I do think, will buy Diamond and hopefully turn it into something better with comics. Will it? Who
No,
knows?
I
right?
think some like Dragon Dildo company's gonna buy all that shit. So shipping worldwide.
They sell fidget spinners, energy drinks, and dildos.
Oh,
Way more margin. Way more
Well,
margin.
yeah,
Keep
you
the
can
comics.
really hike those prices up. Yeah.
Hey, can I say this was brand new to me. Maybe this is old news for plenty, but one of my favorite, I guess the only thing I really really like about Diamond, aside from them, obviously supplying my favorite comic shop in the world with comic books every week, is that the Diamond previews was something I always looked forward to, right?
Yeah.
Like that big ass colossal phone book size catalog of comic book and toy goodness. I was thinking like, well, Dan, what does that mean for the preview? That was something like I always kind of look forward to every month, and it kind of helped me get an idea of the books coming out, how I was going to burn through an entire paycheck on, on resin action figures and things like that. But I don't know why I said resin, but you know what I mean. But did you know that Lunar has its own website and its own previews catalog that combines it has the DC Connect previews catalog in there, which I'm not the biggest fan of all of these different publishers having their own catalog. I kind of miss the days where it was just one giant
It's
catalog.
like the streaming wars for comic catalogs.
Ain't that the truth? Yes,
There's just
DC's
a-
got its own catalog. Image has its own catalog. I think there's another one. But if you go on the Lunar's website, they have their own previews catalog. You either get the separate ones, or they have one combined one.
Yeah.
And what I appreciate about it is that previews, either you had to buy the physical one for whatever $5-6, which was never a big deal. But if you wanted the digital, it was like $5.
Used to be free back in the
Ain't
old
that
days.
the truth? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Just
My
give
biggest
us a break
flex
there.
as a comic reader is that I've never had to pay for a preview. So I don't know who I know or who likes me, but it's worked out so far.
Well, if you're smart, you give those out, because that's like
Exactly.
you're going to get a big ass order for them.
But I guess this is just informational for anyone listening that will miss the Diamonds preview. I mean, who's to say what's to happen to the Diamonds previews?
What's funny too is that the way their website is laid out is
I have a link to it
very
in the show
similar
notes.
to the way the previews, like Diamond, the previews website's laid out. So
I wonder if that's intentional. Like, hey,
it's intentional.
let's keep it. Yeah, you could actually download these for free,
Putting
which is
a knife into the ribs. Listen,
which is great. You could download all of these Lunar previews for free as digital copies, which goes a long way for me. I love that word, FRE, free.
Mhm.
All right, Ed, that was fantastic. I think I'm gonna close this out with one topic that I think is pretty related, and will only bum us out a little.
Like I said, everyone at the beginning, this is an interesting episode.
This is our serious episode. All right. If you want something happy, go check out me and Drew being idiots talking comics on the Patreon. All right, but I felt like this next topic was too big not to discuss. I mean, obviously the Diamond bankruptcy is a huge thing that has happened in our industry. I think Ed, listen, if we're being real, Ed's topic is probably the most lighthearted topic we'll be discussing today. This
Down with
next one though.
Diamond.
This next one though happened around the same week.
sharing in the demise of a large distributor is the happiest topic.
Yeah. Well, the birth of a new indie specific one. I think it was the highlight there. But, I want to talk about tariffs and how that might impact the comic industry. Full disclosure, I understand that there's almost no way not to talk about politics about this, because it directly correlates with with politics. And I also want to emphasize that I don't think none of us have a economic degree or socio-political degree. So, I think I just want to emphasize that part, that we're coming at this. I want to pivot let me take a step back. I want to talk more so about how this topic impacts our buying habits, rather than trying to break down the specifics and the economical aspects of this. But for anyone that might not be aware, the same week that Diamond announced bankruptcy, which was already kind of a hot topic. I think, there was a lot of kind of gloom and doom about what that would mean to the industry. Diamond being the biggest, distributor of comics, or, just being an important one, what that meant. Well, then we got the second blow to the gut when our president started talking about imposing tariffs on goods coming from Canada and Mexico. Now, I'm, not familiar if these tariffs are 100% concrete that they're going to go through, or they're just being proposed. But the current proposal is 25% tariffs on goods coming from Canada and Mexico, and an additional 10% tariff on Chinese imports. Canada then fired back and was like, all right, bet we'll go to impose our own 25% tariffs on U.S. goods. Now, what is this? How does this impact comics for maybe, the layman? Most periodical comics, most monthly comics that you go into your shop and buy are printed in Canada. And then even if they're not printed in Canada, let's say that there's a US publisher that prints their own comics, a lot of times they're using Canadian paper. So, under these imposed tariffs, someone's, prices are going up one way or the other. So I think the expectation is that the price of monthly periodical comics are likely to go up in some regard. When these tariffs go into place and will actually have an impact on said prices is still rather unclear. It could be a week from now. It could be next month. It could be a year from now. I think there's still a lot of things being worked out. And that's goes back to my earlier point that, I want to talk more so how this impacts us. And if I'm not mistaken, I had a equation here, but it's almost looking like the prices of comics will definitely maybe go up $1. It seems like based on some of the math, it seemed like, if we're using $1 as just the example percentage, these tariffs would take it from a dollar on up to $2. And who pays that tariff would be the publisher to get said goods into the country and distributed. And I think it's even safer to say if the publisher is now eating this cost, it's safe to say they'll probably pass that down to us, the customers in some way. Once again, not sure what that means in terms of the final price and how much, but the expectation is that prices are going to go up for comics. And this could mean a death blow for a lot of comic shops, for a lot of publishers, a lot of retailers. In addition to comics going up, everything else is going up: food, energy. So when I say that, it comes from, people are out here, trying to make ends meet. And as much as we fucking love comics, at the end of the day, it is a hobby. It's not essential, right? It's not essential like fucking
it's considered
eggs.
Like a luxury.
Yeah. So, this could mean a change of buying habits for a lot of people. But considering, the panel and you guys, I want to hear from you guys specifically, what's your line in the sand when it comes to how much you would pay for monthly comics? Do you foresee this impacting your buying decision? Let's just use the example that comics are going up $1. $4.99 title is now $5.99, and et cetera, et cetera. Do you see this impacting your buying decisions or the titles you pull? And with this being what seems like an expectation, I'm sorry, or the expectation price is going up, how are you preparing for this rather realistic possibility? Chris, you want to take that first?
Yeah, I think it should be said firstly in my response that the the tariffs have been put on hold. Apparently, they've reached an agreement both with Canada and Mexico, both because. And I'm going to try my best to try to stay impartial. I think anyone who knows me knows that I have a pretty strict out there response to a lot of these things. You just read between the lines there. But basically what 47 did was he said, we're going to create these different trade wars with these other countries, or at least they're going to say that they're going to, just to bait them into lowering prices or what have you.
Yep,
it's basically
exactly.
He's using it as a tactic, as a scare tactic to these
negotiation tactics. Yeah,
correct. Yeah,
exactly.
And what Mexico and Canada both did were like, okay, bet, let's do this then. And he apparently talked to both Prime Minister Trudeau and President Steinbaum, and they all came to an agreement. And what I find the most funny, before I get into the actual comic part about this, is these terms that Trump asked for both have been in effect, both with Mexico and Canada, since November. And speaking on November of earlier last year, is that all these things that he wanted, apparently he either didn't know, or he wanted to make him he wanted himself to seem like he created these quote unquote deals with these countries. it's all just a bunch of nonsense. Point
Ed,
being,
is that what you've been up to since November? You've been facilitating these tariff conversations?
Are you solving trade wars?
and really quick, Chris, I'm glad you brought that up. And I think it echoes what I was trying to nervously get across earlier. Is that it feels like every day the conversation of these tariffs have changed. I mean, the article that I'm referencing is from February 3rd by Heidi McDonald, legendary comic journalist. So if we're recording on the 9th, so in 6 days it's already changed. Yeah. So I mean, once again, I want to emphasize that I don't think anything is set in stone or concrete yet in regards to these tariffs or how they work.
Things could change tomorrow. That's the sort of news whiplash that we're currently living in right now with this current administration, is that, and to speak on what you're saying there, and to give Heidi credit and to give Badr you credit as well, is that the moment that this was announced on the 3rd, it was solved the evening of the 4th. So this is like a quick, you blink and you miss it, and it's a complete onslaught of terrible news, crazy news, terrible news, crazy, like it's just everywhere. So point being is that we spoke on this earlier. The comic industry is a game of margins. We're a niche medium of fans that are obsessive. Note, if you're watching YouTube right now, the short box over on YouTube, look behind me. There's a lot of books. We are obsessive creatures, nerds are. So for me to speak on my spending habits and the sort of erratic behavior of them, will it change anything? Probably not. No. I'm going to buy eggs regardless of the price. I'm going to buy gas regardless of their price. I often don't even look at those prices. But I think
baller statement right there.
Yeah. Bars. That doesn't speak on my financial situation.
No.
Chris goes into any store with a blindfold and he's like, that one. Have you seen really quick the video of Michael Jackson walking through like this store and he's like, that one. And he's buying like artifacts, like expensive chessboards. Anyways, that's Chris.
Yeah, Michael Jackson walks into MoMA and just starts picking out Monets and Van Goghs. Like, I'll have that one. But anyway, so the point being is that like I need this stuff, guys. Let's just be honest. Everyone, let's be completely real with ourselves. When I go to a comic shop, I have things that I've pre-ordered. Speaking on previews, and Badr, I'm going to echo what you said earlier. Big fan of Pull Box. I think it's a great system, and I hope it sticks around in some capacity somewhere. Like if Lunar buys it or whatever, I don't care. I love the system of that because I can easily pre-order a bunch of trades and what have you for the next 4 to 5 months, and it's awesome. And Badr, I've sent you screenshots of my previews, and it's insanity.
Yeah.
And that's not this threat of tariffs and paper and all these things. It doesn't scare me off as a consumer. What I am nervous about more so than anything, and I'm not trying to white knight this whole conversation, but it worries me for the creators. I speak to these, we all talk to creators on our individual shows. And if you talk to them offline, a lot of them won't say this out loud. So I'm going to be their voice box. If you talk to them offline, they will tell you that the industry inside is in a flux. There are editors who are not approving as much. There are, publishers that are not allowing stories to go past 2 volumes because they just can't afford it, or at least can't afford it at the profit that they're currently making them at, which again is very low. So all that to be said, will it change anything for me if these things were to go through? No, but it does worry me for the overall amount of comics, which have been great. Like 2024, 2025, going into 2025, it's been an incredible time to be a comic fan in terms of like the amount of amazing things, both creator owned over at the big 2.
Well said. Look, Chris, smartest guy in the room so far. Once again,
thank you again, Blythe, for not being here.
Back that up. Ed, I toss it to you, man. Now it almost feels like a mute point considering what Chris said, that it sounds like they might have come to an agreement, but I won't believe it until I go into the shop a month from now and the prices are still the same. I guess, Ed, do you have a line in the sand that you would maybe start reconsidering how you engage with the comic industry and the books you buy, etc.?
It's a little different for me because I'm probably way more hot and cold than you guys are with comics. So a lot of times, like last year was probably the most single copies I've bought in years. Usually I'm the trade waiter guy. I'll buy like 1 or 2 issues and then it's like, this is cool.
Dirty trade waiter.
So if that was the case, and I've noticed like, when I've gone, I'm dropping $40-50, and it's like, man, seems like a lot.
It's an expensive hobby.
So it would affect me a little more. Like I said, it's it's considered like what you would consider like a luxury item, like when things start going up, your hobbies are the first things you kind of cut, because you got to pay the bills, you got to pay, the electric bill, you got to pay the rent and all that. I probably, like I said, since it would probably affect it in that way, where I would probably go back to more like last year was the first time I'm like going back to the habit of buying all the issues. Oh, well, might as well get the trade of this. Oh, a new sweet hardcover edition. Let me buy this again. So
Ed, how many versions of Mr. Miracle do you own right now? Hardcover, single trade, Barnes and Noble edition, Absolute edition.
And I'm such a
Target exclusive.
Yeah, I'm such a sucker for those. It's like I would say probably like Watchmen or something, where it's a new whatever anniversary edition. That's pretty cool. Oh, it has some notes in the back.
Can I make
scribbles?
A quick point? I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there, Ed. But you said Watchmen, and it made me sort of it makes me sort of sad / chuckle on the inside, because the reason why, and you guys have noticed this, I'm sure, we have so many versions of Watchmen, right? Like we get a new version, it seems like every year. Black Label, 15th anniversary edition, hardcover, Absolute, whatever. The reason for this is, and you guys, I don't know if you know this, and I'm sure I'm losing some things in hearsay, but when Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, when they signed their contract for Watchmen with Vertigo, if the book ever went out of print for a year, Moore and Gibbons would get the rights back to Watchmen. And since 1984,
it's like a Sony Spider-Man type of thing.
Or is it, I think it's 86.
DC is fucking the DC is for devious for what they've done to this shit, Chris. Go ahead.
But yeah, so every year since, I think, is it 86 is when Watchmen came out? Is it 84, 86, one of those two. Every year we've gotten a new version, a new printing of Watchmen, and so and it's been so bad, and I'm sure it's not hard to piss off Alan Moore, but since then, if you watch anything of Watchmen relation, his name is scrubbed from everything. He doesn't want anything to do with it.
Isn't it the original authors what they credit him?
I know in Miracle Man, because I bought the hardcovers, and I was looking for the Alan Moore Miracle Man, and it was pretty much like, wait, the author, and that's before I knew any of that.
The author.
What does that mean?
Call him the Wizard. The Wizard and Dave Gibbons.
Yeah.
Alan Moore's rage, hatred, whatever you want to call it, towards DC is justified 100%. That 100%. Is some super shady business practice. I mean, it's legal. It's part of the contract, but man.
And then Jim Lee with the ABC stuff too.
Yeah.
He did the same.
We got to look back to Jurassic Park here. You got to think of Jeff Goldblum when he says, "Just because you can do it doesn't mean that we should."
Yeah. To go, I wanted to chime in on this tariff thing. The possibility of prices going up. It sounds like, honestly, Chris, hearing that kind of gives me like some hope that maybe, because comics are already expensive. I think we all remember a time when the standard was like $2.99, and that was always a comfortable price for me. And the bitching that I did when they jumped to $4.99, and then eventually it becomes a new normal, and that's what you're used to. I think I have. And even prior to all this tariff talk, for sure, obviously I'm a big champion of digital comics, like building an infrastructure that is actually somewhat decent, that's easy to find comics. And, I want to see that part of comic books grow. So I think I have noticed my own buying habits shift towards, digital and investing in things like Marvel Unlimited, DC Infinite, obviously Global Comics now. So investing in those, just because I think at times when you start doing the math, it's like, investing in those memberships or those annual plans, you get your money back tenfold, especially considering that something like a DC Infinite, you get all the new books a month out. I think it is, if anything, I've supplemented digital comics, and it has made me a little more, I guess, a little more picky about the comics I actually do buy. And if anything, it encourages me to support like indie comics, like a massive comic book or a image comic book, something that isn't so regularly available on digital platforms because the infrastructure isn't there for, non-big two, non-big three, really, at this point. So I think it's made me a little more picky, a little more encouraged me to support indie creators. And if prices should go up, I think it'll only emphasize what I'm currently doing now, where it's like, I'm going to buy, these digital comic platforms for like my mainstream stuff. I might splurge, like Ed said, on like a nice hardcover. I think there's so many outlets to get comic books at a reasonable price. like DCBS, like that service as well. If you don't care about, being up to date every week or getting, the books on the same date, I think something like an in-stock trades where, they're giving you 50% off. I mean, even like, and if anything, it'll make me want to support Gotham City Limit even more, knowing that, Chris, to your point, that comic books is such a thin margin, like the amount of books that, Ben has to sell at the shop to break even or even like make a profit. I think, I guess my message here for all listeners and comic fans is like, it's going to get extra tough for your comic shop should any of these things come to fruition. It sounds like maybe not, but I think always keep in mind like your local comic shop and how you can support them within reason, obviously. But, even if your shop isn't, you know, even if your shop isn't offering you killer discounts, I think there's a lot of different ways to get your comic books at a reasonable price.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always say like explore those and really, I think just be stringent on the things you buy. I think you can easily get caught up on this idea of FOMO, where it's like, oh, this book came out this week, I got to have it. Or, the internet is talking about this book, or, someone's saying this book could be worth a lot. And I think it's easy to get into that habit. And next thing you know, you're spending $90 a week at the shop for the, things that you kind of don't really need. So I think really having an honest conversation about, your time, the books you really want to read, and just, being a little tight.
I think it's important for comic readers to understand our responsibility, right? Like, again, speaking on the margins and the niche medium and all the things, comic stores require us to pre-order, or I guess publishers more so require pre-orders to know what people are excited about, especially with the smaller two. Now, if you really hate what Zeb Wells is doing with the Spider-Man series, don't buy it.
Don't hate buy.
Right. Start voting with your wallet, right?
Well said. Yeah.
At the same time, you need to support the series that you really care about. For instance, I'm really excited for, and this is sort of a shameless plug because we just have the creators on the show, Out of Alcatraz from Oni Press by Christopher Cantwell and Tyler Crook. And I would never do this for most series, but I've reserved every cover of issue 1 because I want this to be shown by Oni and the powers that be that this series is wanted. Now, this is a weird transition, but something that really bothers me is Marvel putting out, I went to the comic shop this last week, and Marvel has been doing this for a while now, and it's so silly to me. And it goes on the same conversation of how, Potter, I think we're in agreement in this, that digital comics should not cost the same amount as
100%
physical
agree.
comics, right?
That is definitely my comic hot take number 1 right there.
Okay, here's hot take number 2. Why the F are they selling Uncanny X-Men number 129 for $4.99 at the like they're reselling these reprints?
Oh, the
facsimiles. Yeah. Those used to be $1.
Ridiculous.
It literally, I don't know if they've superimposed the price off of the cover or what, but these used to say $1.
They use AI.
Dude, that's so aggravating.
And what are they? And they're putting out foils of this, like the most dumb shit ever that they're putting out, and people are buying them. Bro. It's crazy.
Shameless.
So again, I think I'll sort of end my part on this is that as comic readers, as fans of the medium, people that want this thing to exist, and we want to support the things that need our support, the medium requires our participation. If we, complain about it on the back end and then do nothing about it when we visit our comic shop on Wednesday, then we have no one to blame but ourselves.
Well said, man. Chris for president. God damn it. Chris Hackett for president.
Put me in office.
All right. And I think with that being said, boys, I want to get off the news. At first, we joked that the news today, the topics we were going to discuss were a little grim, but I think we came out pretty good, man. If anything, I feel more inspired to go to my comic shop and visit and support where I can. And I think that's the message that I want our listeners to get out of all of this. But if you've got other opinions or, you want to chime into any of this conversation here, shoot us email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com or send in, or you could text us fan mail now. Check the link in the show notes to text us fan mail.
If you really love AI and tariffs, let us know.
Yeah,
love those tariffs.
But on the topic of local comic shop, new comics, my comic shop at that, I want to get into our last segment of the show, which is Ben's FOC picks of the week. I reached out to Ben Kingsbury, the owner of Gotham City Limit, and I asked him, hey, what are 3 comic books or things that people should have on their radar for this month's FOC, being your final order cutoff? And he sent me 3 awesome picks this week, which I always say he's always sending great picks, but this set in particular, All right, I want to go ahead and emphasize that he sent in these voice messages after coming back from MegaCon. It's MegaCon weekend when we record this. So, big shout outs to Ben for making this happen. Let's go into his first voice message and pick. And I do want to say I've got his picks listed in the show notes. You could check out some of the previews, some more information on the creators and things like that. But let's get into his first voice message.
Live from Jacksonville, Florida, home of your local comic shop, Gotham City Limit. I'm Ben K. I just got back from one day at MegaCon. I'm pretty sure that's all I can handle financially. However, it's amazing to see how the comic books have permeated into modern pop culture. And my first pick is an exact example of that. How about Image Comics presents Gromit? Oh yeah, the 80s coming of age comic series you know and love. Skateboard Decks by Brett Parsons. 3 different ones from the skateboard culture of Rick Remender, Brian Posh, and Brian Parson come amazing display pieces. Or if you're into skateboarding, they are for you as well. When I see them, all I can think is Gleaming the Cube. What an amazing old movie that was. I'm going cover B, Brett Parson, punk rock look, but there are 3 choices for you. Awesome for your comic book collection. Gromit's Skateboard Decks by Brett Parsons. To the limit.
I mean, come on. I mean, he came out the gate with some heat. It wasn't just a typical comic pick today. He was actually promoting these skateboard decks based on the Rick Remender and Brett Parson comic series Grommets, which is, like he said, an 80s coming of age comic series about friendship and skateboard culture set in the 80s. And I'm sorry, Brian Posehn is also involved with that series as well. Have any of you ever skateboarded? Chris, like ever in life?
Ed, what do you think? I'd love to hear.
What's your relationship with skateboarding?
It's not good. I think I tried because when I was little, that's when it was really starting to become in the mainstream, like with Tony Hawk and all those guys. So the word poser I heard a lot. If you didn't skate, and my weight at the time in skateboarding was not a good combination. So I remember trying and basically really busted my ass and then stopping immediately after.
I think
it's not for me.
I think I played the Tony Hawk game one too many times as a kid.
Oh, I can do these.
And the pizza man or the angel or whatever the other
1,000-yard rail slide.
Yeah. And I think I busted my ass out 1 or 2 times. And then I shifted to buying a Razor scooter. And completely devastated and tore up my shins, and I just stopped. I stopped anything I stopped taking part in anything that was less than 4 wheels. So that was my relationship with skateboarding. I did invest a lot into skateboard shoes like Nike SB. So that's probably the closest.
I do like skateboard shoes.
I guess I was a poser. Yeah, I've been a poser my whole life. I wear the skateboard shoes, but I ain't getting on that, especially at this age. I got so many friends that have jumped on a skateboard willy-nilly, just seeing if they still got it, and literally have busted their ass and broken their arm. I can name 2 friends. No, that's why C hasn't been on the show.
Skateboard injury.
Did you skateboard as a kid?
Oh, of course. I think we were all sort of part of that generation where Tony Hawk Pro Skater was so in the culture, and we're all listening to Superman by Goldfinger.
Oh my God!
We're in
Here I am doing all the things. Yeah, don't get me started.
We're all just just doing constant 900s in the what was it called? It's where the plane is. I'm forgetting the level, but the point being is, yes, I tried, and also like Ed, I failed miserably, and I think I broke my radius when I was in middle school, and just stopped after that. Yeah.
Now, I do want to say these skateboard decks, which look like they're $40 a piece. There's 3 different versions. Each one of them has art from Brett Parson. Like I said, the series artists of Grommets. I think this is a good look. I don't know what you would call this, synergy or a related. I don't know what you would
cross merchandising.
Yeah, cross merchandising. That's a great word right there. Yep. You should work for Disney, Ed.
No.
This cross merchandising.
Sweet, my AI knowledge. Use it.
Cross merchandising like this is a good look. It's like they're going all into the aesthetic, into the whole point of the comic series. So I can get behind cool stuff like this. And I guess to Ben's point, whether you're an old crusty fuck like us that will never jump on a skateboard again, this makes for a good art piece, or something actually practical.
That's just going on the wall. We're not putting any.
Yeah. You're not going to grind on this one here. You don't want to ruin that Parsons art on the bottom.
For sure. All right, let's move on to his next pick here. I think this one is an actual comic pick. Here we go.
And next up, Assorted Crisis Event #1 by Image Comics. I'll tell you why I chose this one. Writer Dennis Camp. He's done 20th Century Men Ultimates, but I'll tell you why Botter will choose this one. Because this is an anthology series, and you know what that means? It's just full of one-shot stories. So you can buy the first issue, you can buy the 5th issue, you can buy the 12th issue, but you don't have to sign up for your pull, and that's magic to Botter's ears. So here it is. Image Comics presents writer Dennis Camp says time's having a crisis. We'll find out here.
What I don't appreciate is Ben putting me on blast like I'm Diamond and I owe him money. But to his credit, this series, Sorted Crisis Events #1, which comes out March 12th. It's written by Dennis Camp. You got art by Eric Zawadzki, I think that's how you say it.
Zawadzki, something like that, yeah.
Zawadzki. And colorist Jordi Belair and letterer Hassan Otsman Elhau. I mean, that's kind of a killer lineup right there.
How
Dennis
do you beat that lineup?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, you're telling me the writing is going to be good. I'm not familiar with the artist, but if he did the cover art, that's very impressive. You're also telling me the colors are going to be good and the lettering is going to be phenomenal. And it's an anthology series that I don't have to exactly sign up or commit to on my pull list. Yeah. Don't be like me, actually. Go ahead and actually put this shit on your pull list if you like it. Yeah, Sorted Crisis Events #1 comes out March 12th. Any thoughts on this? Any reactions to this one?
I'm a fan. Yeah, this looks
I'm a
really
fan
good.
of anthology stuff.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so it looks like this one's going to be about, I guess, just like different time stories, like stories involving time and crisis. It sounds like, I don't know.
Not DC crisis.
Yeah. I guess here it is. An ongoing zigzagging anthology series about the compromised clicks of our clocks, full of one-shot stories with both beautiful and ugly, tragic and redemptive, surreal and somehow all too familiar. I mean, that sounds poetic. No. Dennis Camp, thank you.
Isn't that what he does so well? I mean, anyone who's reading the Ultimates or anybody who's read 20th Century Men, they know. And if you've read 20th Century Men, this is essentially kind of similar to what he did in that book, which is where he told different perspectives of war and people who have been affected by it and such. And this is just incredible. I mean, again, you could have just shown me the cover and the creative team, and I would have been very similar to Out of Alcatraz earlier. I'm going to buy every cover because this is the kind of book that you want to support. And I think Dennis Camp is continuing to solidify his place as like the new hotness, right? Like he's doing everything he's doing right now. Was it Chris Condon that's doing Ultimate Wolverine? I thought that was Dennis Camp as well, but maybe not. I could be wrong.
No, I don't think he's doing Ultimate Wolverine. I think that was Chris Condon. Yeah.
Okay, so he was announced to do something else. Is he doing the Absolute Martian Manhunter? Is that the one he's doing? Okay,
yeah,
I knew he was doing something else besides the Ultimates. Point being is that this is very exciting, and this is gonna be great.
All right, well said. All right, so once again, that was Assorted Crisis Events #1, comes out March 12th. The FOC final order cutoff is February 17th, so that would be next Monday if you're listening to this episode on Wednesday. And we got one more pick from Ben to go through. Here it is. Back to Ben.
And last but not least, how about a Mad Cave Studios presents Dark Pyramid #1. All right, Mad Cave Studios has been writing a couple of really awesome underground stories, so I'm going to give this one a shot. Why? Well, dark pyramids, conspiracies, mountains, death, betrayal, monsters. Yep, the truth is out there. Add Dark Pyramid #1 to your pull list ASAP. Well, another week has come and gone, and I'm still Ben K, representing Gotham City Limit, Jacksonville, Florida. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility, and always take it to the limit. Peace.
Done deal. All right. That was a fantastic trio right there. This pick, Dark Pyramid #1, also comes out March 12th. Final order cutoff February 17th. This one is being done by writer Paul Tobin and artist PJ Holden. I won't lie, I'm not familiar with either of them, but the cover to this book looks awesome. Mad Cave is definitely a publisher I look out for, especially when it comes to new number one. I almost feel like they've almost, I won't say replaced because Image still does it really well, but they're in that same tier of like, oh, new number one. And if the art on the cover looks good enough, a premise like this, what Ben was saying, conspiracy. It looks like it involves an adventure in Mount Denali, Alaska. Yo, sign me up. This sounds pretty interesting.
Do you remember the series from a couple of years ago that was getting some like either cover heat or getting some kind of speculation for Bunny Mask? Do you remember those?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I saw those a lot at conventions. Anyway, that was Tobin. He wrote that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then
okay.
PJ Holden, he did the art for an anthology, a Kickstarter anthology here recently, Death of Comics Bookcase by Zach Quaintance from over there at the Beat, and he did a really incredible story in that. So this is interesting. And again, Botter, to sort of echo what you were saying there, Mad Cave. It's like Mad Cave, Oni Press. They're in this mad dash to sort of cement themselves as like the new kids on the block. Not that they haven't been around for a while, of course they have been, but like I think both of them are sort of reworking their identities in comics, and I really love the things that they've been doing here recently.
Well said. All right, Ed. Obviously, all three picks from Ben are fantastic. But if you could only pick one, which one are you going with? We got the Grommet skateboard deck, Assorted Crisis Events #1, and Dark Pyramid #1.
I think out of these three, they're all interesting. I probably won't get the skateboard deck, to be honest with you. But too many bad memories. Probably the Assorted Crisis Events, because just like you, Botter, I do love an anthology series that's each issue's its own standalone. So I have commitment issues. So
co-signed for all those same reasons. I have paid way too much for Invisalign to fuck up my teeth again, so I definitely would never get those skateboard decks ever. So Assorted Crisis Events #1 gets my pick. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I'm also a anthology slut, and I love Dennis Cam and what he's doing. So, and also, you had me at Jordi Belair and Hassan Otsman Elhelm.
Right,
so
come on.
Let's do it. And also, I meant to say this earlier, but Eric Zawalski, he did a series a couple of years ago called Time Before Time. It was an Image series that was pretty good about time travel. So, if it's anything like that, I am game. And this was already like one of my most anticipated books of the earlier part of 2025.
Well said. Well, big shout outs to Ben at Gotham City Limit for providing those. I'll have links to all of that in the show notes if you want to take a deeper look. But ladies and gents, this is the Shortbox Podcast, and we just finished talking about the latest comic news with my friends Chris Hacker from the Oblivion Bar podcast and the exceptional Edmund Danzart. I'll have links to everything we talked about in the show notes if you want to fact check or dive a little deeper into what we discussed. We would love to hear from you. If you got thoughts, opinions on anything we talked about, you can shoot us an email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com or text us directly. You can text us fan mail now using the link in the show notes. I'll also include links to where you can follow Chris for all of your Oblivion Bar podcast needs, and as well as Ed. All right, not only does he post fucking awesome artwork, but if you follow his food account and you live in Jack's, that's all you'll need. All right, you'll never have to wonder, what am I going to have for dinner or lunch? It's follow Ed's food. It's Edbot Eats World, right?
It's Edbot Eat World. Yep,
Edbot Eat World. That's right. Chris, what do you got lined up for Oblivion Bar? If people want more comic book podcast content, what do you got lined up?
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you both for having me on the Short Box again. I always love doing these. Anytime that Botter shoots me a text and asks me to come on to talk about.
Well, Greg's going to be, I just realized Greg is going to be from First Issue Clip, is going to be so jealous.
You're right.
But I it was a conscious decision not to reach out to him because it's Super Bowl Sunday. And I'm like,
he's busy.
You're right. It's like Kansas City. He's in Kansas. He's busy.
Yeah.
But anytime that Botter and crew, they want me on the show, I'll be here 100%. So again, if you want a slightly worse version of what Botter and crew do over at the Short Box, go over to the Oblivion Bar, a comic book podcast, oblivionbarpodcast.com. Upcoming episodes that we have on the docket. Again, I said it earlier, but I'll just reiterate because I love this conversation with Christopher Cantwell and Tyler Crook about Out of Alcatraz from Oni Press. We also have a review of Captain America Brave New World coming out in a couple weeks because we're getting that next week.
Yep.
We'll be talking about The Monkey, the new Oz Perkins horror film here upcoming. And then we're also going to be having Matt Fraction and Michael Allred on the show at the end of the month talking about their upcoming Minor Threats entry. So a lot of cool things. Also confirmed Kurt Pyers with his new Image series, Lost Fantasy, going to be on the show in a couple months. So a lot of cool things on the docket for the Oblivion Bar.
Hell yeah, I'll be checking that out. All right, to everyone else, Shortbox Nation, thanks for tuning in. You could be listening to any other podcast, but you press play on this one, and that means the world to us. All right, come back next week for a new episode. But most importantly, take good care of yourself. Make time to read a good comic. I'm signing off now. I'm Botter. Peace, everybody.